Welcome to Let's Talk Tri-Delta podcast. We're doing something a little different today. In a Turn the Tables episode, today's guest is none other than Tri-Delta's Chief Executive Officer and your regular podcast host, Mindy Tucker, from our Theta Kappa chapter at Southern Methodist. I'm Heidi Guest, and I'm excited to interview Mindy and help introduce her to our members as Tri-Delta's new CEO. Now, I'd like to share a little bit of background about Mindy because she's got an amazing history. Prior to her role as CEO, Mindy served Tri-Delta as the Vice President of Marketing and Communications, overseeing all public-facing efforts for the enterprise, including digital media, the Trident, events, member communication, crisis communication, as well as project management, data and insights, and technology. She also served as Chief Strategy Officer, where she brought a wealth of strategic expertise to Tri-Delta's new strategic plan. Prior to Tri-Delta, Mindy served as Chief Spokesperson for the U.S. Justice Department and was in that post on September 11th, 2001. She also served in various communication capacities in politics and government. Mindy has worked closely with nonprofits, corporations, and startup companies at her own firm, Crux Partners, and prior to that at Ogilvy Public Relations. Now, regarding awards, in 2004, Mindy was awarded Southern Methodist University's inaugural Emerging Leader Award. And in 2014, she was recognized by San Diego Magazine with its Women Who Mean Business Award. I'm excited to help our listeners get to know her better today. Mindy, welcome to the podcast, this time on the other side.
I know it's a little bit weird to be on this side, but I'm really glad to be here and glad to be able to talk with you.
I'm glad to have you here. How does it feel? How does it feel?
It's a little weird. I'm usually in control of these interviews, so.
All right. Well, I'll give you as much control as I can. Mindy, I know after watching many of the podcasts that you start your podcast interviews asking the guest usually how they came to Tri-Delta. You know, what was their Tri-Delta story? So I kind of want to pose the same question for you. Tell me about your Tri-Delta collegiate experience at Southern Methodist University.
Yeah, so we had deferred recruitment at Tri-Delta at SMU. So it happened, now it's in the fall, but it was in the spring back then. And I had a chance to meet some of the members of Tri-Delta in the fall. We got to know people. And there was one in particular, a woman named Tamara Marinkovich, who befriended me and my freshman roommate, who was a friend of mine from high school. And Tamara was this amazingly accomplished woman who like worked and still took care of her mom who had an illness and was in Tri-Delta, and she was in student activity. She was just like, how does she do it all kind of person. Very impressive, and took time to recruit my friend Brandy and I into Tri-Delta. And so that was the sort of how the story went. And we found our home there. And for me, it was just a place where I always felt at home. I felt like I shared the values of the women that I was meeting, the things I cared about, they cared about. I loved how they showed up on campus and in activities and involved in the community. And so it was a really great fit for me. Um, the other thing that I think was really special about it was I came to SMU without a lot of money necessarily. It was an expensive school. Uh, I never felt that difference inside Tri-Delta. I might have felt it on campus. I might have known that that was something, that I was a little bit different from people there that had money. Um, I never felt that difference in Tri-Delta. It was truly a place of belonging for me.
I love that. I love that. That whole idea of bring you, right?
Right.
And your talents and abilities. I wonder what you've learned that you use today, what you learned at Tri-Delta that comes into your life today, because we always talk about lifetime membership, but what's the imprint Tri-Delta has left for you?
I think personally, there's this idea of truth, self-sacrifice, and friendship.
Yes.
And I think that's core to everything I do. I think honesty and loyalty is really important. I tend to be one of those people who looks to serve first
Mhm.
rather than be served. And I
Yes.
think a lot of that comes from that idea of self-sacrifice in Tri-Delta, and that you'll get as much back as you give.
Mhm.
I really learned that there. And friendship, my friendships are so important to me in Tri-Delta, but even outside of Tri-Delta, like that's a core part of my life is who my friends are and how I show up for them and how sort of interrelated they are in my life. So I think those things. It's funny, I think about that also from, now I work at TriDelta. So what do I lean back on from my experience in this role and working at TriDelta? And I think I have this keen understanding of scholarships. Our foundation gives scholarships. The foundation was created the year I joined TriDelta, and it's not lost on me what my situation might have been, how that might have been different had I had a foundation scholarship when I was going through school. So I reflect on that and really understand the women that we're supporting there. Um, when we ask our members or our officers to do something, I've been there. I know what it's like to ask them to do that. I was an
Yes.
officer in the chapter. I was the vice president of administration.
Mm.
So I know when we're asking our officer teams to do something, I've been in that seat. And so I feel like it's a perspective that you bring to the table. Things are different now. It's been a long time since I've been in school, too long to think about. But I think it's good to have that perspective. I think I'm also really passionate about our housing experience because I got to live in the house and it was so unique for me and so special for me that I can go share that with others and talk about it. I'm really passionate that as many of our members as possible get to have some sort of housing experience inside TriDelta. So it's funny what shows up for my personal membership experience and my work that I get to drive and share with others now.
That's what I was thinking as you were talking was it was a first person experience that blossomed into this desire to assist, our members in every possible way, for lack of a better term, that's the best phrase. And I feel that as you're talking, it really makes me very happy that you're serving where you currently are. Let's go back in time a little bit. I am fascinated as I learned about your resume with your political career. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely a different time in politics
Yeah,
than it is now.
yeah.
Um, but I went to Capitol Hill straight out of college. I worked in a congressman's office answering the phones and scheduling White House tours and sort of worked my way up. At one point, I got asked to write a letter and they figured out I could write. And they said, "Hey, would you like to be involved in the congressman's press operations?" And so I sort of worked myself up from there and just ended then started a series of being in the right place at the right time. I was his press secretary when a lot of things changed on the Hill and he got better committees and more responsibility, and so I got to sort of rise with him. And then I had the chance to go back to Texas and work on a presidential campaign, which was an amazing experience on so many levels. The family and people that I met through that, just amazing friends and connections. But the experience, just the work experience, crisis communications, and understanding stakeholders. There's so many different pieces in a campaign that you're knitting together to make something work. Um, and then I had the chance after that campaign was over and we won. I had the chance to go back to DC and work in the administration and was the chief spokesperson for the Justice Department. And I was 30 years old at the time. And I think about just like having no business doing what I was doing at the age of 30. But
Oh,
but I had done so many things so young that there I
yes.
was. And not really even realizing what was in front of me when I took that job. There was, just a deluge of this and that. The Timothy McVeigh execution happened while I was there at the Justice Department, and the Microsoft settlement, their antitrust settlement. There's so many big things. And then September 11th, and to be, in that position on that
Yeah.
day. I mean, it's still one of the most rewarding experiences I've had, but
Mm.
also just, so life-changing and so heavy. Um, to have lived through and talk. I get asked to talk about it a lot. My kids' school friends will ask, can you come talk to our class on it? And um, it's interesting, even this many years later, to recount it. But it was just a, a moment in my career that really mattered to me and gave me a lot of maturity and experience that I take with me going forward.
You know what I really love about your story and how you developed over time, new opportunities came to you, is it all started with somebody noticing that you could write a letter. That's what I heard as I was listening. Somebody saw this person has an ability. And that ability launched 1,000 ships. I mean, who would think as a young woman at 30, you
That's
would be in
right.
the position you were? It's
Yeah.
really quite awesome.
Yeah. It's also, I will say, they asked me, do you want to respond? Do you want to do this? Do you want to write this letter? Nobody else in the office wanted to do it. And I said, sure. I was always like, I'll take what I'm just trying to make a way here.
Wow.
So, never pass up an opportunity to showcase what you can do, even if it's
You know,
in your job
yes.
description or what, just do it.
Step forward, lead from where you stand. You definitely did that.
Yeah.
Now, at post politics, I'd love to know about your life and how it evolved after politics, because that was quite a ride. You then kind of transitioned to a different life. Tell me a little bit about that and what went into that decision.
Yeah. I think that whole time there was still my career had been first, first in my life, and it's a driver. But I still wanted a life outside
Mhm.
of it. And I think when you work in those kinds of political positions, you don't get to have a life, but I still wanted to get married and have kids and be a
Yeah.
mom, all the things. Um, and so I ended up meeting someone who did not live in DC. He lived in California. And
Mhm.
we decided to get married, and I thought this is my chance to. And so I had to walk away though from the career, and it was, there's lots of that's a whole nother podcast in terms of
It
like
is.
out. Is that
That's
the
a
right
that's a
decision?
moment.
What do you do? But for me, I made that decision. I moved to California. We got married, and started down the road of being together and then trying to create a family, and quickly realized I was not gonna be able to do that on my own. And made the decision to adopt kids. And it's fine. People ask me all the time, is it different? Do you think it's as I don't know any other way. I love my kid. I can't imagine loving my kids more than I do. I have two
Yeah.
amazing boys, and they're now 13 and 16. But um, that was a great experience for me, the way I did it. So many women struggle with infertility and challenges on that front. And you have to figure it out for yourself what your journey is and how you want to go about doing it. Um, but for me, I did not spend a lot of time on fertility drugs. We just went straight into this, like I'm ready to adopt, and we're ready to do this and make a family that way. So yeah, but so it was that whole next part of my career was like figuring out how to juggle having a life, but still I realized still wanting to work and wanting to feel purposeful outside of the house, outside of my family. And so finding the right balance for that was probably a good, 8 years or so of my life of kind of going back to, working at Ogilvy Public Relations part-time,
Mhm.
having a business of my own so I could dictate my schedule. It was a lot of juggling around to try to figure out how to make that work because I didn't want to be out of the house all the time when my kids were young,
No.
but I still had that need to work.
Yes, and the fact that were brave and bold to step away from the political arena, then go to really expressing another part of yourself. And then I love the idea that you said, no, both are important. I need to bring both back into balance. And that's
Yeah.
not easy. Those of us who are watching this podcast or here right now know that that is not as simple as it sounds. But it's about making decisions about how you want to live your life. And I think that's wonderful. So now let me follow you. How did you make the transition? It's kind of becoming clearer and clearer to me as I listen to you to TriDelta's executive office, because that
Yeah.
came next, right?
This is a fun story. So when I worked in politics, I had a woman on my staff named Jill Angelo. She's a phenomenal woman. She was an intern for me like 98 and then worked on the presidential campaign with me. We've remained friends. She and I worked under Karen Hughes. Karen Hughes is this woman everybody adores and loves. She is so wicked smart around communications. She was President Bush's right arm. She was the deputy ambassador at the secretary at the Department of State. Like she's just anyway, an amazing woman. Um, Jill stayed working for her. Jill worked for her after Karen left the White House. She was her chief of staff at Burson Marsteller. Fast forward, Kimberly Sullivan becomes the fraternity president of Tri Delta. Kimberly and Jill are best friends.
No.
Yes. Kimberly says to Jill, I want to hire Karen Hughes to do our crisis communications and some messaging for us. And Jill said, okay, but Karen's an 80 Pi. Do you want to try Delta? And she said, that would be great to have a try Delta on the team. And she said, we're going to call Mindy. And so Mindy and Jill and Karen got the band back together from politics and came to be a consultant for Tri Delta. And we managed crisis communications for a little while and also did after the rebrand was done in 2016, we did the messaging, we crafted the messaging that went along with the new brand. So Yeah.
Does it make you wonder, Mindy, when you look back, I know when I look back too, about the coincidences or what are the, you ask yourself, what are the chances the band is back? It's just amazing how people turn up in our lives.
And I can remember years before that, like watching
Mm.
Phyllis Grissom and I went to
Yes.
college together. She was a year younger than me. And I remember watching her be involved with the Trident and then coming on the board and thinking, God, wouldn't it be great to work at Tridelta someday? I probably could never do that because I'm not living in Dallas and that's where they were based. And it just is like a fleeting thought, but like, wouldn't that be fun? And you just never know how these things are going to come about. And it's never in the way you think it is, ever.
Yes. Isn't that true that when you look back over your life, things aren't forced? It's just you saw an opportunity or something turned up and you turned toward it. That's the biggest learning I've had. And when I think about then you being so involved in Tridelta, as we talked about earlier, and now this moment in time where you've accepted the CEO position. And that is, amazing. You joined TriDelta's executive office. Anything you want to say about that in terms of the time that you were there?
So I started out as a consultant, and then this position came open to be the vice president of marketing and communications. And it was the right I was ready to, so personal life story, ended up getting divorced, was a single mom, and really needed, to take a step back into a more structured workplace from owning my own business. And Tridelta, was going through a little bit of a transition and created this position that was like a perfect fit for me at the right time. And I got hired in and have been here ever since. And I will say this, I think one of the commitments that we've made at Tridelta as a women's organization is we are also a great place for women to work. We make
Mhm.
ourselves flexible, and we allow we always say family first. Like I've never had a problem scheduling to be off to go drive on a field trip.
That's wonderful.
And I have flexibility if if somebody calls from school and I have to go pick up my child because he's sick. I had a boss who was like, hey, that comes first. We'll reschedule our meeting. And there are not a lot of places like that. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's been the most beautiful partnership at a time where I was, a little bit, recently divorced, a mom of two
Okay.
kids on my own, trying to figure it out, how to do all this on my own. It's just been again, you get to have this amazing career. You get to do this thing that you love at a high level, use all these skills that I had in my life and do it for an organization that I deeply, deeply care about.
I mean, that's just amazing. And I now see the link between your political government role and Tridelta, because that was something as well as I know you, I didn't really understand that as well. And it's funny, as you and I have gotten to know each other in the recent past, we've talked a little bit about, you accepting the Tridelta interim CEO position, and then this moment in time where you are now going into a role that you've really everything has pointed to this. But you said something to me, and I won't say it, but you said something to me that made me pause as you shared it with me. But tell me about this moment in time of becoming the CEO. What's going through your head?
Yeah. I mean, you're honored
Yeah.
and you're like overcome with like, wow, they think I can step in and take the reins and manage the organization well. And that, that's a lot of confidence to put in me. So you're proud of that, but also a little bit terrified that they're putting all of that confidence in you. Um,
Exhilarated, Mindy. Exhilarated.
some adrenaline there. And I remember being a little bit scared about it. And the first time I talked to one of my kids about it, I talked to my son Caleb, who's 13. I must have been hesitant because he finally looked at me and said, Mom, isn't this a good thing? And so I
Our
think I was
kids.
feeling my angst about it. And he's like,
Yeah.
this is terrific. You're going to be the CEO. So I stepped into it. And I think even then, at that point, the way we have our succession plan read, the way we did our succession plan was if anything ever happened and we needed somebody to step in, Mindy would step in. And then Mindy could decide if she wanted to be a candidate for the permanent role, and the board would do a search and choose a permanent CEO. And so that's what started to play out. And so I realized I had a choice to become the interim, but I also had a choice about whether or not I wanted to be the permanent CEO. And so you get into the job and you're living it and you get to sort of feel it out before you make that decision. but I had always seen myself as a number two. And I had
That's
always
what you
had a,
told me.
yeah, I had always had a really strong number one in front of me. When I was in this position and Karen White was the CEO, I was her number two. When I worked for Karen Hughes in politics, I was always her number two. And I think I had just gotten really comfortable there and not
Mhm.
had not seen myself as a number one. And so I went into this whole thing from that perspective, and it took me a bit of just stepping into it and realizing I could do it and believing in myself and seeing it play out, but just stepping in and having, putting the fear aside and just stepping in and doing it and realizing, oh, I can do this. I can be the CEO.
When you said that to me, I always pictured myself as a number two. I was shocked because I see you as, of course, this person has every talent and ability to be to go to number one. But then I thought to myself, how many times have you thought that, Heidi Guest? Or how many times do a lot of us have that moment where we think, is it is this really where I can go? Is this even possible? And I think it's so nice for me to know, and for the people that are listening right now, that even you had that thought, because I think it affirms us all that it's a natural thing to question, but that
Yeah.
when it comes time, like you said, I could and I did make the decision to step in. And I salute you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. I did. And
Yeah.
it worked great. But so I guess that's my advice. Step in, for
Yeah.
anyone.
No, I think
We're,
that's
we're all
true.
going to doubt ourselves from time to time, I think. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
you know,
you must have a lot of hopes at this particular point and aspirations of what you want to bring. We're asking you to bring you to Tri Delta and what you want to bring. What's your vision, Mindy? I know I listened to a podcast recently where you shared some ideas about your vision, but what are your hopes and dreams for
yeah.
how you will live into this role?
I just think we're at such an amazing time. We have so many opportunities in front of us. Um, we're at a point where growth is an option.
Mhm.
We have some exciting extension opportunities in front of us. So it's fun to step into that and think differently about that. Um, I think we're really thinking about alumni membership and what that looks like and how we can really create meaningful engagement for alumni and getting to do that in a different way than we've done before. And
Mhm.
so that's exciting. I love thinking about new things and ideas and trying things. And we're really in a test and learn mode on the staff so that they can, come up with crazy ideas and try them. And not everything's going to work, but some things will, and it's going to grow the organization. I think about TriDelta's foundation and the impact it has, and then the capacity for more of that. And I'm
Mhm.
really excited about some things we're stepping into there um, in order to just grow the impact that we can have on our members and the way we help and support members. It's truly
Mhm.
amazing what we're doing there and telling more people about that and getting more people involved and being a part of that impact is going to be so fun. And then Tridelta Housing, they're doing just some amazing things. These houses that they build, if you've take a look, go online and take a look at Kansas. There's a video you can walk through the house at Kansas. You can walk through the house at Butler. Um, it's just the places that we're creating, the spaces that we're creating for this generation of women to
Yeah.
come together and learn and be together and enjoy friendship. I wish it was like that when I was there. I was very happy with the housing experience I had when I was there, but it's just crazy how elevated it is and what we're able to do for these women. So it's just an exciting time to think big
Yeah.
and re-engage and make sure TriDelta is there doing what it needs to do for all of our members. So
If there was a banner I hear over everything you're saying is you're just excited to create a larger and more accessible community
yeah,
of Tri Deltas. I love your emphasis on the alums. Even though we were told as kids it was a lifelong experience. Some people just think 4 years. And I think of how many possibilities. And with your visionary talent and your ability to see a whole new day for Tri Delta, I think you will define membership in a whole new way during your leadership term, and that's really exciting to I think a lot of us hearing this. Um, as far as any challenges you see on the forefront, what's the big rock that you see, or what do you see as a challenge, or maybe, just something that we need to address?
yeah, I think a couple things. Higher ed in general is just a volatile industry at the moment. It came out of COVID. People were questioning the value of higher ed in some cases. We've seen entire campuses shut down as a result of what sort of the transition that happened over the time that we were working through the pandemic. So there's a lot of uncertainty there, and that's where that's the main place we welcome members is on college campuses. And so I think we just have to be mindful of what's going on there and what the trends are there. We're only going to be as strong as all of the campuses that we're on in terms of our collegiate experience. I think getting buy-in from alumni, really giving them something that is meaningful to a diverse group of alumni who are all in different ages and stages of life, and enough so that they want to pay dues and give back and sort of be all invested into the organization. And that's a challenge in front of us, creating that. It's not a culture we've had.
Mhm.
It's been a culture where we pay dues as an alumni. So how do we shift that and change that in an effort to make sure that the collegiate members are not bearing the brunt of what's going on at Tri Delta in terms of funds? So that's just a couple of things that are in front of us. I think there's
Yeah.
always outside forces that affect what's going on inside Tri Delta, and so just
the,
being mindful
the
of
landscape's always changing,
all.
and you'll always respond, and we will respond as a leading organization to those changes. That the whole focus is on community and building our sisterhood. I have to say something, Mindy, that I learned about you that I just don't want everybody to know because it just makes me smile. It's a
Uh-oh.
fun fact, and we'll end on some fun. In
Okay.
2021, you started a later in life sprinting career and earned a bronze medal, I may say, for your 50-meter sprint at the San Diego Senior Games. That is true, isn't it?
That's true.
What
This was my
inspired this
midlife
endeavor?
crisis. This was my midlife crisis. Uh,
Okay.
we went to summer camp. The kids and I went to a camp that we go to usually every other summer, and there was a family relay, and I ended up running the sprint portion of the relay. And my kids at one point looked at me and said, "Are you sure? Like, you can't run. I don't know. What are you doing?" And sure enough, I kept saying, "It's fine. I'm not going to do this part. I'm not going to do the swim. You guys do that." And so as I was running, I remember hearing people along the way saying, "Wow, she's really fast." And throughout the rest of the day, people were coming up to me at the camp and saying, "Wow, you were so fast this morning." And I knew from it, like in elementary school, I would always do the sprints well. When I played softball on the hill, they called me Wheels because I ran the bases fast. Like, so I always kind of knew I had,
Hey,
but I'd never run track or anything because I was too lazy and I did not want to run long distances. So this is,
okay,
admit that.
you're a sprinter.
Yes. But 50 yards, I could beat anyone. That was always my mantra. Like, don't make me run 2 miles. I'll be out. But fifty yards I can do. So this started a conversation. It was a bunch of Trideltas actually who said, "Well, if you think you could do this, maybe you can do this. Is there a race you could do?" And so I started looking and I got a trainer. Next thing I knew, I was training for the San Diego Senior Games because you can do the Senior Games when you're 50, and I had just turned 50. And so there I was, yeah. And as I started into it, I realized I didn't know it at the time, but I had begun injuring my hamstring over a period of years. And the trainer was trying to help me, do the warm up properly so my hamstring wouldn't hurt. And so I took off running in the race, and about two-thirds down, I felt my whole hip shift and I tore my hamstring completely off the bone. So I don't know that this is like an inspirational story in the end because I'm still dealing with injuries that come from that. But I have healed. I have sprinted since then. I am fine to run again. I will probably never take this up as a career, but yeah,
But
I have
you have your bronze. You
yeah,
have your medal.
it's a great story, right?
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's continue the fun a little bit here. I wanted to give kind of a lightning round of questions for you if you don't mind. So we're
Okay.
going to do one after the other. First question. If you could swap jobs with anyone in the organization for a day, who would you swap with and why?
I think it would probably be somebody on the housing team on a day when we're putting a house together to open it. And they're like going to Home Goods and getting like the last few elements and decorating the shelves and making it look beautiful. I just think that would be such a fun experience. And I know they do it, and I'm glad they get to do it because it's like a reward after a lot of hard work. But I think it would be so fun to decorate the house.
Well, maybe we can make that dream come true for you, Mindy, in some way, shape, or form. Now, guilty pleasure. Is
Uh-huh.
there a guilty pleasure in the form of a TV show or a movie that brings you great comfort?
Yeah, I will do mindless television when I need to. So I'll like get into a Gilmore Girls or a something like that. I could probably watch the movie Pitch Perfect all day long,
Mm,
every day, any day. I'll just pick it up and start watching because it makes me giggle and laugh. And I love music. So yeah, I'm one of those like mindless when I need it.
yeah, no, it makes total sense because you need to take a break.
Yeah.
So speaking of music, what's your go-to karaoke song?
So I do love music and I do love to sing. My best friend's husband and I do a version of Tennessee Whiskey for karaoke that everybody loves. And I love it because I'm really just a backup singer and I get to just like pop in at a pivotal moment and make the song better as he's the lead. But it's very fun to do.
Uh, I can just picture it. How about the favorite way to spend a Sunday?
Gosh, I think fall Sundays are the best. I will get up and go to church and then I know there's football and beautiful weather out so I can take a hike or whatever. But I know at some point in the day I can sort of do the couch and watch football and hang out with the kids. So.
I love that. Are you a morning person or are you a night owl?
I think I'm a morning person mostly. I can do late when I need to, but I do not have trouble getting up and getting going in the morning at all.
And when you're texting, what's your most used emoji?
I think the laughing till you're crying, and I use it too much. My kids are always telling me that's not cool anymore. Stop using that. But I still think it's appropriate for most things.
Don't you love that? The kids tell you how it is.
Yep.
Okay, last one. Coffee, tea, or energy drink?
Um, I'm really a soda person.
Mm.
So yeah, but I've given up regular sodas and I drink this special soda that's supposed to be not as bad for you called Zevia. And everybody laughs at me because I like carry it around with me when I travel. But yeah, I need that carbonation.
Yeah, little bubble's good.
Yeah.
Well, Mindy, thank you for this time that we've had together with you, and we are so fortunate to have you leading Tri Delta. I know I speak for a lot of people, and I think it's fun for everybody to get the chance to get to know you better. Now, I don't know if it's because of my QVC background, but I've been told that I should share that Tri Delta would like me to remind you that we have an online Tri Delta store from necklaces to hoodies to graduation stoles and honor cords. We've got it all. So if you're thinking of a special Tri Delta and you want to find the perfect graduation gift or a gift overall, or you want to buy a gift for yourself, head to www.shoptridelta.com and start shopping. And please like, subscribe, or rate this podcast. I understand Tri Delta loves it when we get 5-star ratings. But thanks for joining us. And until next time, we send Delta love.